Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for a intense, maybe somewhat exciting, but certainly intense discussion about committees and why this is so important for the work we do as the League. And our theme today is how to lead with purpose and how to build successful and impactful committees. Today, presenting to you are Marcia Berry, on the screen, who is our LWVAZ president-elect, and myself, Penny Sharan. I serve as the state advocacy chair and the board secretary. Our goal in this presentation is that by the end of the session, we hope you will understand both general committee concepts and very league-specific protocols, learn how committees support governance, mission, and nonpartisanship. We want to be sure you will know to identify structure, roles, and responsibilities that will help make a committee really effective, and apply some best practices such as goal setting, assessing effectiveness, and accountability. And we also want to be sure that you are cognizant of when a particular committee is independent and when it's not, and the importance of confidentiality of league work and the alignment with priorities. We want you to become familiar with some of the LWBAZ resources. Marcia and I had very grand plans on showing you a lot of samples, but none of it worked for us. So we are going to follow up with providing you with some templates, so on. So if you've never been a committee chair or you'd like to up your game in how you manage your agenda, we can provide you some resources. So why do committees matter? Okay, I'm going to, I believe, turn this, I'm going to set the framework and turn it over to Marcia because she's actually going to walk us through why they matter. I believe this is yours, actually, Marcia, so I'm going to turn it over to you right now.
Okay, so the underlying foundation of this presentation is to really reinforce why committees matter. And they create the spaces where members actually fulfill the work. It's the engine that drives the production of the needed education, of the accomplishing our goals of empowering voters and defending democracy. So they really, if you think about an engine, they're the piston of the engines that actually propel the organization forward. Go ahead. But the committees are recommending bodies. The decisions actually still, remembering that we're talking about the AZ structure and how that functions within the board. So the committees do this work and they make recommendations, but the decisions themselves rest with the board because the board has that authority and that responsibility for the decision-making. But the committees do bring the robust discussion and the information back to the board so that those decisions are knowledgeable and can move forward confidently. It is important that the committee work supports the board governance. That's remembering that decision-making rests with the board, but it also reflects the league priorities. And what that drives then is the board is informing the committees on what those priorities are. The committees then have a responsibility to support those league priorities. The other thing is the board itself cannot do everything. So this actually distributes the workload and across both interested and knowledgeable members across the organization and within the board itself, and prevents or at least tries to mitigate the burnout that can happen. There's much work to be done. Many hands will carry that work forward much more efficiently than if the board tries to do everything. It's also within that, it's shared responsibility. And that does model the democratic processes of involving those people who matter most, that is, those people who are going to benefit from those decisions, and have that understanding of the work that's being done. Within that work, then this will carry those priorities forward and will advance that stated league mission. So it does provide meaningful roles for members. So it engages the members in really the value of the work and the difficulty sometimes of accomplishing that work. It improves transparency of that governance and the oversight. It helps the members then, or the individuals involved in the committee work, to understand what the background information is and why those things are important. And ideally, back up. It does strengthen decision-making by bringing in people who have knowledge, who have experience in selected areas, and have stepped up to help with the decision-making and committee work processes. So just by background, it's really just making sure everybody has a common understanding of the terminology and the committee lingo. The board of directors is that elected body that governs the league. There are specific officers within the state league. That's the president, treasurer, secretary, and this can be a different term. It might be president-elect, it might be co-president, it might be vice president. There are also ex officio members, and those roles are served by virtue of that role. So, for example, the president is an ex officio member on various committees. That's because it's their role. It's not because they were selected to do so because of their experience or their knowledge or any other attribute that brings other people to the committee. So depending on your bylaws, that ex officio individual on any committee may or may not have voting privileges. So that really depends on the bylaws, which brings up a point where the committee chair needs to be cognizant of what those bylaws state very specifically as to what individual responsibilities are. But there are also off-board members, and those may be on a committee but are not part of the board. So who decides? The committees recommend, and the Board of Governors is actually the voting body that has the process of either handling those committee recommendations. They may accept it, they may decline, they may have other issues, they may send it back to the committee. So only board members have that power to vote for board decisions. When a committee brings recommendations to the board, because it's considered a collaborative effort with multiple input, that is already considered to be seconded, and there's no second then in the voting process. And you hear that periodically. This came from a committee, there is no second required, and if there's appropriate discussion, that happens, but then the vote moves forward without a second. So the committees will bring forward recommendations for board action when that action is needed. So it could be financial matters, legal matters, policy changes, collaboration with other organizations, when there are certain actions that must be taken. Otherwise, if that committee work is ongoing, they will give periodic updates. Like if you think about voter services, there may be some actual decisions that need to be made that the board will approve. Other times they're updating the board as to their ongoing projects and activities. I don't think we can stress privacy and confidentiality really too much in this work. The league is a 501c4 organization, but it is a private organization. So in that scenario, because it's a private organization, it wouldn't matter if we were nonprofit or for-profit, the public meeting laws do not apply. We're not receiving public money, governmental money, tax money, whatever that might be. And when that happens, there are some very specific requirements in terms of adhering to open meeting laws. So the board decisions and deliberations should be kept confidential. We do deal with some pretty sensitive subjects, And we want to make sure that we're respecting individuals' right to privacy and being able to have confident, open, candid, and collegial dialogue. And so that confidentiality is important for people to be able to be confident that they can be open and candid in their discussion. So it does protect the trust and the organizational integrity. Now we're going to talk about formation and best practices. Committees are created with a purpose. They should have a structure and very clear goals. And that's sometimes where we run into some trouble. So all committees must align with the league mission, vision, and values, organizational priorities, and maintain that nonpartisanship nature of our organization, regardless of what the committee is actually formed for. These three attributes remain. So when a committee is formed, it is approved by the board or as outlined and specified in the organizational bylaws. Each committee should have a clear scope and charge and have SMART goals that have been developed by that committee then to be able to move forward so that there's transparency about that work that's ongoing in the committee. It needs to be diverse. Representation needs to be diverse, equitable, and really representative of the membership. That's not always easy to achieve, but it is an important consideration as the group is forming. The SMART goals, anybody who's been involved in organizational development is very familiar with this. So SMART goals are specific, they're measurable, and they're achievable. Importantly, they are relevant. They are relevant to the overarching scope and charge of the committee. And it's important that they are time-bound. There needs to be a clear set of expectations of activities and when that work will be concluded. Next. Okay. So there are certain types of committees within the league, and it shouldn't be every item that comes up. There really needs to be a stated rationale for the creation of a committee, and that then again aligns with structure, with board priorities and league mission. So there are standing committees. These committees exist in perpetuity within the organization, unless there's some overarching reason to make a different direction as outlined in the bylaws. But the governance committee, development committee, finance, audit, and the executive committee are structurally embedded within the organization. And they are really, those groups monitor and propel the organization, continue to propel the organization forward and provide that oversight. There are often reasons to develop ad hoc committees or task forces. These are time limited. They are formed for specific projects or studies, and they're really better outlined for short-term work. And once the task, whatever that task is completed, the group disbands. And that's an important consideration, because what you don't want is kind of mission creep where the task force or the ad hoc group just kind of keeps going, and maybe there's some fluctuation in what is perceived as their mission. So the formation of the clear goals and structurally outlining what the deliverables are is important to know when that work is completed. So examples within the league are a task force to create a DEI policy, best practices, document committees that pull things together, event organizing where there's clear start and stop. Those are ad hoc groups that are created. Within the league, study committees occupy kind of a unique spot in the organizational development and outlining future goals. Study committees are also temporary. they are member approved. So the formation of a study committees, we all see, at the last convention, the members approved the formation of a study committee, and then the board will appoint the membership on that committee, at least the leadership, and they will then work on the membership going forward. There are specific protocols for study committees, and the membership approval is required to actually start that work and to approve that work going forward. So an example is the 2023 study to review and update the education public policy. The board then appoints the study team and chair. The study teams are independent of the advocacy team, and that guardrail exists for a specific reason. Advocacy only moves forward when there's a specific position and a public policy statement that's been approved by the membership. So it will remain independent of the advocacy team. And again, it's a temporary committee, though. Once the study ends, and if the position, they formulate the position, it goes to the membership. If the membership approves, that team then dissolves. And confidentiality is embedded within this also. So the study materials themselves, the creation of those study documents, are league property, and they are proprietary to the league. The statements become the position statements for the league, but the study work is proprietary and confidential. Next. And then, of course, there's always one other outlier, and that is the nominating committee. So the nominating committee is independent of the board. The chair of the nominating committee is elected by the members, and structurally, it exists as independent of the board to maintain neutrality and to minimize any potential conflicts of interest. And it ensures really that the nominations coming forward for any elected positions are driven by the members, not by the board. The committee functions independently. The roles and responsibilities of the nominating committee are really mission critical. They are charged with identifying and recruiting strong board candidates who reflect the organization's values and needs. They then recommend a slate of nominees to the body. The body then votes on those nominees. And some organizations, depending on the bylaws, will permit nominations from the floor during the actual election process. Some organizations do not. So that, again, references back to the bylaws and the position descriptions, the actual roles that are being brought forward for nominees are determined in large part by your bylaws description of what that role is within the organization, and any position description, feedback, and responsibilities they will pull that, the nominating committee will pull that out of existing documentation. So they really have the responsibility to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion in the organization leadership. And the goal is to promote a healthy board rotation to bring fresh perspectives. And they're really a link to the members to be able to describe not just the importance of the roles themselves, but to encourage participation by people who have the skill set, have the interest, or sometimes they may not be fully aware of what all these roles are. And it's the nominating committee that is out there explaining the importance of these roles and encouraging participation. Reminder that there's, we've gone through these various types of committee. There's the unique attributes. So sometimes when you're considering leading one of these committees, or you are considering exploring opportunities to participate as a member, just to double check and make sure, which kind of committee. Is it ad hoc? Is it a standing committee? And because those do bring different opportunities for you as a member.
All right, my turn to talk a little bit about the LWVUS and LWVAZ committees. So we are going to go through is that, and Marcia had said this earlier, only create a committee when there's a real need. And you'll see a little bit about how we are working on some of the committees. Actually, when you want to form a committee, do it only if there's an actual ongoing need. We've talked about that. The board has to authorize it, define the scope and charge up front, use SMART goals. We want to be sure everybody's thinking in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just in terms of race and age and gender and political affiliations, but also in terms of, for us as a state, what's very important is to ensure that we have representation from all the local leagues. The most important thing with committees is that if they don't know what the scope and charge is or have a clear expectation of the workload, then it's very hard to have an effective committee. So we encourage committee members and chairs to take time to do that. We have a bunch of league tools that we want to be able to share with committee chairs and committees. So we're really excited if you reach out to us and say, hey, Penny or Marcia, can you give me a sample template for agenda or whatever? And we're really happy to do that. One of the things, and actually, Marcia, I would like you to jump in on this because you and I had a lengthy conversation about some of the pitfalls of committees that are not authorized or a committee loses focus. So I'm going to walk through the bullets, but if you could speak to them, it'll be wonderful. Okay.
Sure. So I think one of the items that must be considered, and this is responsibility for people who are authorizing these various types of work groups, is you don't want to form like a never-ending committee for something that really should be handled by a short-term task force. That's where you can get like the work doesn't get done, or it drifts, or there's maybe not a clear understanding and charge that this work needs to be accomplished by X time. Next. What you also don't want to do is duplicate board or staff responsibilities. And that's something that can happen within the committee work. And it's important to, again, clarity on the front end about the actual scope of the work of the committee and what that charge is will hopefully help minimize any opportunities, because what you don't want is not just duplication of work, but inconsistent work or work that's not internally in sync with what needs to happen that is already happening at the board or staff level.
On that point, Marcia, I'd also like to add is that the committees need to be also mindful of, did this work actually get done before? Is there existing body of knowledge about this work? So you aren't reinventing the wheel.
So what you also want to do is no committee should be formed that is not authorized to do that work. And so if there is no board authorization, that committee is not authorized to do that. Can't form that committee, can't make recommendations back to the board. So it really is important that there's a very clear line from the board creating and authorizing a committee. The committee then moves forward with all of their tasks and responsibilities. And again, mission creep and work creep happens all the time in groups where there's not a clear set of expectations and task tracking that happens. Legal exposure is something that we must remain diligent in observing and making sure that we understand if there are issues that might be arising, discussions that are happening, which could expose the league or the board to legal challenges. So unauthorized decisions, groups that are moving forward that have not been so determined by the board, misrepresentation, or failure to really adhere to the league mission and values. Making sure that the board continues to be aware, whether it's just episodic updates that happen or actual reports that are produced by the committee, so that the board is aware and they can provide input, or they can ask questions, or they can seek clarification on information coming from the group. We are referencing AZ, so our groups are formed with statewide intent. And if we don't have statewide involvement in the committees, it really does weaken the alignment, and it leads to kind of silos of information that are specific to those members that are present. And when you can involve the state, you get a really robust discussion and a robust expertise that is across all of the local leagues.
Marcia, if I could amplify that, because I know our public policy positions chair is on this call, and she would appreciate us bringing this up. When we are approved to conduct studies and we form study committees, it is so important that every local league send representatives. Otherwise, the position that's arrived at really doesn't have buy-in and consensus from across the whole state. And then you risk the possibility that when it's brought forward to the convention for a vote, it fails because the due diligence wasn't done. As with everything, if you're involved, you're more likely to promote it. If you're not involved, you're going to be disengaged, or you're going to say, I don't really care about it, or I'm against it. You know, if you're against something, be there as part of the group so they can recalibrate their approach. So especially with study teams, it's so important that all the local leagues step up and volunteer to help on that. Which brings me to the most important thing is we're a volunteer organization. We really have no staff. So if we didn't have committees, I don't think we could get anything done, frankly. So it is important for us to know that. We keep talking about the board all the time, and we thought you all should have a good sense of what are these boards. Every local league has its own board, but how they form it is based on their own bylaws. So we're only going to focus on the US board and the AZ board. So the LWVUS Board of Directors is elected in its entirety at every biennial convention. We just went through in 2024, and the next one coming up is in 2026. So what does that board comprise of? They have 4 officers. They have 9 directors. Every single one of those are elected, and they have a nominating committee. In the nominating committee, there's an elected chair, and there are 2 elected from the members at large. The board gets to appoint 2 members, so it's a 5-member committee. Now, on the state, now I must say this, I got to put this plug in, Marcia, is that as the National Nominating Committee chair, anyone on this call that is eager to be at the national level, please watch out for those applications. At the same count, Susan Penner, our state nominating chair, is on the call. So everybody who's on the call, if you are interested in serving on the state board, please make sure when Susan asks for help, respond. Don't let her emails go to junk, folks, okay? She is asking for help, okay? This is our AZ Board of Directors. The officers are elected either at the biennial council or convention, but the actual Board of Directors is an appointed board. So I want to be sure everybody understands that there are 4 elected officers: president, president-elect, secretary, and treasurer. But the Board of Directors consists of 10 members, 2 from each local league. We have 5 local leagues, and 4 are members appointed by the board itself. Okay. The nominating committee, the chair is elected, but the committee itself is composed of 2 appointees by the board and approximately, hopefully, 2 appointees from each local league. So that should be about a 13-member board committee to reach out, solicit, recruit, and do the work that's needed. Just so that you all know, we don't often hear about this, but LWVUS has a ton of committees, okay? Every so often they'll put something out saying, we're inviting you to apply to be part of the committee. For example, the last one they did was the Federal Judiciary Study, okay? So the main committees that are called out by the US bylaws are executive, nominating, election, and budget. But every board, that is every 2 years, there's a new board. They kind of decide what is the committees and task forces. And I want to draw attention to a few of these, okay? They have audit, finance, DEI, governance, bylaws, policy compliance, okay, advocacy and litigation. All the stuff we're seeing, lawsuits and so on, is given oversight by advocacy and litigation. Program planning. Program planning is what we call public policy positions. That's an old term that they have. Resolutions. Transformation is an ongoing committee tied to the transformation roadmap. Here's the thing folks don't know. We have a committee of UN observers. We're part of a number of UN commissions. So if you have any interest in that, let me know and we'll get it out to the national to say, we've got some people who want to be on the UN observers, okay? They have some task forces. There's a board term and nominations task force that's looking at how the board terms will work. There's an elections task force. The federal judiciary was a study. They are done. They have submitted their position. It's been adopted. They have been disbanded. Then there is a legacy project leadership development. It's an ad hoc that they suddenly created. We wanted you to get a sense of how those concepts of standing and ad hoc committees are being applied. In the AZ space, the way we've organized our committees is as follows. The two most important committees for the state board are our mission critical committees. That is the one committee that defines and brings forward public policy positions. And the second is the massive amount of work that we do in advocacy and action. And I chair the Advocacy and Action Committee. And Kathleen Edelman, who is on this call, Kathleen, I believe you're on the call, is our public policy positions chair. And you'll be hearing from her next month. So please watch out for that. The next group of committees are what we call collaborative and convening committees. We don't actually, as a state board, do deep grassroots work on this, but what we do is convene the leadership of these committees at the local levels so we can share best practices, we can provide resources, we can, we can flow down tools and other information that would be useful. So there's a membership committee that is comprised of chairs, membership chairs from the local leagues. Voter Services Committee, the chair of that is Grace Mary Kiesfeld, and she will be convening the Voter Services chair. And we have a DEI committee with an off-board chair position that is currently open. Then we have the governance and administrative support committees. These are the committees that help us with governance. Finance, development, technology, convention, council, league, historical, nomination, bylaws, and budget. The next thing we want to do is talk a little bit about study teams, because it is important to emphasize this, because we have some studies coming up. These are limited time. When they're done with the study, they disband, okay? They are provided oversight by the Public Policy Position Committee. The appointments to those are in consultation with the PPP chair that will appoint the study team and members. They are independent of advocacy issue teams. They are not an advocacy issue team. They are temporary in nature because they're done. Advocacy issue teams don't go away unless the issue goes away and we have a perfect world and all the issues have been solved. Whereas study teams, once they're done studying the issue and come up with a position, they're done, okay? We maintain all the records and confidentiality, and what we publish is what has been agreed on by the members as the final document. Here are the studies. This is why we need you to pay attention, because Kathleen's going to be asking for help on this, okay? One is a new study was approved for housing, to develop a housing policy for AZ, not just for a local league. To review and revise elections and security positions, to review and revise the legislative and congressional redistricting position, and to review and revise the initiative and referendum position. And something that I forgot that's still in the works is the the medical aid to the deaf and dying, which was approved 2 years ago, but we haven't had any work done on it. So we've got some study teams getting ready to be formed. So we ask you please to respond to Kathleen, okay? Nominating committee, Susan Penner is on the call. She was elected at the last convention. The membership will be at least 2 local leagues appointing, the local league boards appointing 2 members. She'll be reaching out, and the state board will appoint 2 members, okay? Their responsibilities is to prepare a slate of nominees for the elected officers and the nominating chair. They do not prepare a slate for the board of directors. All the board of directors are appointed. The slate is presented first to the state board and then the delegates at the biennial state convention. Exception is that we elect a president-elect every year at council and at convention. The elections in AZ, our bylaws permit members to make nominations from the floor, so we want to be sure you're aware of that.
So membership in league committees. So there are these board-approved committees, the ongoing governments. Participation is limited to league members, and we may invite guests to come in specifically for their expertise, but they cannot vote or make those recommendations. We're seeking information, background information, and expertise. Excuse me. The chairs are appointed by the board or is required by the bylaws. Study committees, again, time-limited policy work. The board and member authorized the study is approved by the members of the council or convention. The committee team is appointed by the board. This is restricted to members only for full participation in decision-making. Again, we may call in guests who have specific subject matter expertise to make sure that we are gaining the background information that's needed for the development of the statements. So the expert is only presenting information to educate members. They are not, again, participating in the decision-making process or the deliberation. The member adoption of the policy position ensures that the members are in informed agreement on the positions. The chairs are appointed by the board in consultation with the Public Policy Positions Committee Chair, which is again a board appointment.
Okay, so I'll take this one, Marcia, if you will. Is this, yeah, 17 is mine, 18, 19, and 20 is yours. I missed that, sorry. Okay, so one of the things that we have been asked by many chairs is, you know, how can I be a better chair? How can I be a better committee chair? We're going to talk about challenges also, so we don't want you to think everything is wonderful and we have all the solutions, but we do want to provide some guidance. One is focus. If you keep the work aligned with scope and goals, you're going to be successful. So provide direction, make sure that the scope and charges is followed, you know, prevent some mission creep. Now, here's the thing, recruitment. It's a big issue, recruiting members to the committee. It should be based on mission, skills, and expertise, not just because, oh, I know this person, so I'm going to put them on the committee. But you may know that person because they, in fact, have a lot of passion and they can actually do the work. But it shouldn't be just because I know that. Do invite people you don't know. You never know what gems we have out there that they can provide. Also, you know, rely on the AZ board and local leaders. We may know folks that can help you with your committees, okay? Do foster collaboration and then balance the expertise. Here's the thing. If you've been in a committee and the same members are the members of every committee on your, in your org, or it's the same members that have been on this committee for a long time. You're not going to get new thoughts. So it's important to balance that experience, institutional knowledge they bring with new ideas. And many of you know this already. We just want to reiterate for new young members also who are starting to take on committee chair responsibilities. One of the things is to have meetings that are productive. Okay, please use Robert's rules as much as possible. Here's the most important thing for you as a chair. Is the workload being equitably shared, or is it two people who are doing all the work and you've got a committee of 15? Okay, try to make sure that they are. And so maybe partnering people so that not just one person does it, assigning someone to work with them. And a great thing is to pair new league members with buddies for mentorship. So this is an important thing. As an effective committee chair, you should communicate your progress to the board. Let the board know, provide reports and recommendations clearly, and then keep members updated on what did the board say, are there changes you have to make, etc. And then this is the part that committee chairs often are so frustrated, and that is, we agreed to do this and it's languishing and it didn't get done. What will happen, I know a number of organizational development folks on this call that would love it, is start considering having some kind of spreadsheet or some kind of tool, and we have some samples to provide you so that you can say, okay, you agreed to do this, this is the date, hold them accountable. It also ties to the SMART goals, because if you track the work you're doing, then you're ensuring that you're meeting the goals and that you are being accountable. Okay. One of the things about new members, especially as we bring more and more youth members into our committees, what we want to be able to do, and we're finding a lot of success, is giving them the opportunity to come up with ideas, giving them the opportunity to shine. So the next item that we're going to cover is the members themselves. The thing about committees is you can be a member of the league and show up and register. But really where the rubber hits the road is not just when we register voters, but when we create the activities, when we create the programs, when we reach out and create partnerships. All of that is committee work, and you need people to be able to do that. So we couldn't mobilize for action. We couldn't spread our impact if we didn't have strong members in the committee. So I'm going to ask Marcia to take us through the next 3 slides, okay?
So what do we hope for? What do we expect of our committee members? One is that when anybody, not you in particular, sign up to work with the committee, to volunteer, to participate, active engagement is actually critical to the success of the team as a whole. And that does mean attending meetings, participating in discussions, committing to that participation with the understanding that you are part of that shared workload. Understanding the committee scope, charge, and league mission and priorities is sort of that foundation. That is the pillar upon which all of the work successfully happens. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to be crystal clear. If you're new to a committee, if it's just been formed, and it's really making sure you're asking those questions if it isn't clear, to make sure that you're still aligned with the work. Sharing the responsibility is taking on some of those assignments, actually volunteering and stepping up, whether it's to jointly work on something with another member, working collaboratively towards those SMART goals, again, with a common understanding of what those goals are, and following through equitably with the work of the group. Preparation for meetings, meeting those deadlines, and honoring commitments is really the respect of the team. It's the respect of what the deliverables are, and it's making sure, once again, that you're engaged and accountable.
If I might add to this, I think when committee members don't read the reports, don't read the agenda, and you are planned to have a meeting as a chair, we have a number of chairs, you're getting ready to have a meeting, and you need that those committee members to give input, otherwise you can't move whatever it is on your agenda. I think when committee members don't take the time to prepare for a committee, it really causes it to gum up the works, so to speak. So we encourage you, whether you're a committee member or whether you are a chair, try to work towards ensuring that people are prepared before they come to the meeting. In this day and age, when we get so many emails and so many documents, etc., we know it's hard, but it's hard to do the work if you haven't read what the information is on which you have to make a decision. As we keep saying, is we want an informed voter. We definitely want informed chairs and informed members. So keep the chair and fellow members updated on progress. Marcia, it's you.
Making sure that the group has some sustainability is important, particularly if it's a committee that's an ongoing committee. So it keeps you from, I apologize, mentoring. I'm going to turn it back to you because I'm having parking issues.
Okay, all right. So one of the things with, as we all know, many of us have been in the league and are coming off a particular age, and we're all very worried. Who is going to be there after us? We've done the work, but we want to keep this going. So be thinking about that. Start bringing in the next group. They don't have, I'm hesitant to say next generation because they could be from any generation, but they're new people coming in that can take our work forward.
And what it does really is it builds resiliency in the organization. That is a healthy organization, that the work involves that there is growth in the membership, and there's not just sustainability, but it builds robust resiliency, and it builds an institutional memory that can carry forward regardless of who comes on board. And lastly, bringing value, contributing relevant expertise and, independence of thought. It does respect the perspectives of your community. That's another reason why statewide representation is important, because we all know there are attributes in all of our communities that are unique to those communities. And our goal as the state league is to have that understanding of what our communities are.
Can't emphasize enough the nonpartisanship. If you're a member of a league committee, keep your partisan opinions and all outside. Like we say, park it at the door before you come into league work, Okay, this next part is we did a laundry list, Marcia and I, of all the complaints we've heard about, I can't get my committee to work, including our own complaints, Marcia and mine, about not being able to get some committees to work. So we're going to walk through this to give you an idea that we're aware there are some challenges, but then we'd like to also talk about, are there solutions? What are some strategies you can take back? So for the leader, the chair, I'll take the leader, you take the member, Marcia, okay? So here's the thing for the chairs, recruiting other leaders, recruiting someone else to take your positions, recruiting someone to be a vice chair. It's really hard to find someone willing to do that. If you've been doing it, they're going to say, well, you did it, you can just keep doing it. And we've got to make sure that we work a little harder. Some of our chairs have a hard time asking outside of their circle. I know only these people, I don't know those people. I'm afraid they're going to say no. It's okay. People are going to say no. It's really okay. I'm used to getting a lot of people say no, but I never walk away and say, of course you can do it. Can you do it? And many of you know, I persuade as much as I can. Limited experience, some of you may think, yeah, I don't have any experience being a chair. I don't know if I want to be a chair. It's a fabulous experience. there is no such thing as limited experience, because whatever you start with, you're never going to stay there. You're going to grow and grow and grow as a chair. So don't be afraid, especially if you fear that, oh, what if I fail? The whole league, all of us are here to support each other. You're not going to fail. Okay. I promise you, you're not going to fail. There's so many of you that want you to succeed once you've stepped up to be a chair. The one area that can be problematic is you're hesitant to ask members of the committee to do work, so you do all the work. Well, that is a sure sign for burnout, folks, okay? Or driving yourself to a place you don't want to drive to, okay? Now, one of the challenges for us all as a chair is, we talked about it, the members are not, prepared for the meetings, they don't follow through on assignments, or there's a limited attention to the ongoing updates. You send an update and they didn't read it. Well, guess what? We're also members, all of us. We may chair a committee, we're a member of another committee, and we forgot to read the minutes. We forgot, so every one of us is guilty of that. We're also overwhelmed. The one area that we know we have a lot of ways to support you all is the technology barriers. We cannot move forward and expand our work without leveraging the technology to the best extent. So we have more and more, as much as we really love meeting in person, the convenience of that for people who work, for members who have children and childcare issues is daunting. So we encourage you to get the help you need to use the technology. The other thing that's very important, Marcia touched on this, that is institutional knowledge, institutional history. That cannot be maintained if you're maintaining files on your computer or you're maintaining books in boxes that are under your bed, okay? That is not helpful to anybody. And that used to be an old model. We encourage you to move away from that. Keeping in mind, documents, all these are property of the league. So use the league resources, use the league storage in order to do the work that you need to do. The last item is a killer for all of us, is time commitments, okay? We have so many things pulling on us that it is daunting. If you work, it's really daunting. If you have kids at home that you're trying to manage, it's daunting. If you're giving care to somebody else, if you're in one of the sandwich generation, it's daunting. So time commitments are a real challenge. But if you sign up as a chair, we are so grateful you do. Local leagues are grateful you do. And we know you've already said, yes, I'll make the time. So thank you for that.
So if and when you're trying to recruit for your committee members, it's like there's some similar challenges from a committee member perspective. If the scope and charge is not clear and there's a lack of understanding on what the purpose is, so hey, I signed up for a committee, I'm really not exactly sure what the committee is supposed to do, but this chair reached out and I said, sure, I'll help, but I'm still not exactly clear. It falls back to the chair. The chair is going to end up doing additional work and trying to drive this forward and making sure that each committee member, they don't understand, that they've got their hand up and they're saying, I don't understand what this means. Making sure that is clear for the committee members. Weak accountability. So, challenges for the members. I said I would do something, but I actually can't get it done. There may be resistance to being accountable, making sure that there is an understanding of what the deliverables are. And those deliverables need to be met because that is the core work of the committee. And when committee members are resistant or they haven't gotten something done, you really are not sure. Is it because they don't know what to do? They don't know how to do it. They don't know where their resources are. And sometimes it's trying to drill down and say, are you having a challenge with getting this work done? Because it was due a week ago, whatever it is. And making sure, because usually there's some underlying obstacle that maybe that committee member is not forthcoming about or feeling confident that they can disclose that. Unequal workload. Again, when you have members who show up for the meeting, but they're not really engaged in getting that work done, the work gets taken over by other people or the chair. And that it creates just huge additional burdens. And you really lose the robust discussion that happens when everybody is participating. So it's really making sure that everybody understands that this person has certain responsibilities. We need other people to step up. When people join a committee and pursue personal interests or side projects, and it creeps into the work of the committee that is not aligned with the league priorities, that can very much derail the work of the group and steer it off track and really create issues for what the board is expecting the work to be done. And it can create disharmony and conflicts within that committee structure also, because that's very proprietary interests that may be creeping into the work. Communication breakdowns, we touched on this before, being prepared for meetings when people don't follow through on assignments, they don't stay engaged between meetings, or they're unprepared. It's like putting a big roadblock, throwing spike strips on the road as this work is moving forward and driving forward, that is going to put everything to a grinding halt. And that's the work of the committee then stops. And that's really kind of the height of dysfunction. As a committee chair, it's like keeping your eyes open and really identifying what challenges you're having within the membership and your comfort level in addressing some of those issues. Some of those discussions are a little more problematic for some people. Again, there are resources within the board to help guide those discussions. If you're having challenges as a committee chair, it's going back to the board and saying, I am really struggling with engaging the group, and give me some hints, help me walk through how I can resolve those issues. So that can sometimes be a barrier for people who step in a chair role. I don't want to deal with conflict. I don't want to have to hold people accountable. It's very uncomfortable for me. And there are ways that strategies and help and guidance that you can get from experienced board members to help resolve some of those issues in a productive and collegial manner.
Marcia, I'm so glad you brought up the point about leaning on the board to help when you are struggling, whether it's as a chair or, trying to. One of the things I wanted to frame this is that these are not everything that you're going to experience, but you might experience one or more of those. And we want to be sure to acknowledge these are real issues that people face as they serve on committees, lead committees. But here's the thing, we're all in this together, right? So we talk about diversity of opinion, we talk about including everybody. We also talk about equity, but part of that equity is making sure everybody has a chance to participate, but everybody also participate. It's not just the opportunity, but that they also participate. So we do encourage both the members and the chairs not to get scared and say, oh my God, I'll have to face all of this. No, you may never have to face any of this, okay? But be aware that if you face it, you're not alone, okay? There's people. And sometimes on your committee, you have great members who can help navigate some of these, especially if you're doing it the first time. Lean heavily on those folks, okay? Now, technology gaps. This is a challenge, not just for chairs, but for members. And sometimes a chair who's really good technologically has to hold hands for the members, but that's okay. They'll come along, okay? That's coming, whether we like it or not, technology is here to stay. And it is helping us advance our work without having to spend a lot of money on buying additional resources. Time barriers. Well, this is a tough one. Okay, so this one, I think, Marcia, the only way to address this is straight on, and say, look, if you don't have the time, we understand. Maybe when you have the time, you can come back and help us. So you can be, help us in small projects that the committee is coming up with. There are lots of ways to help us mitigate that. Every single one of us who's chaired a committee or is a committee member knows time constraints is one of the biggest reasons why some members aren't able to engage fully in a committee.
I think one of the factors to consider, whether it's chairing or participating as a member, is saying, you know what, I'm on board for something that's time limited. I'm on board for something that's maybe a 2 or 3 month project and deliverable. It might be the nominating committee, it might, whatever it is, where there's some pretty clear guardrails from a time perspective. Maybe when somebody's evaluating like what they can become involved with and they know they have certain limits on their availability, it's saying, okay, I'm on board for a short-term project. I'm not on board necessarily for a 2-year study group. I don't think I have that kind of capacity in my life. But if there's something I can do to help that group, that would be of value. Maybe it's attending public meetings and feedback sessions, whatever that might be. So that's on those longer term groups. As a chair, you can have some attrition within that. People drop off and you're needing to recruit new members to kind of fill in those gaps. So that's another challenge from a leadership perspective.
And we're coming up on that, Marcia, with advocacy firing up now. We need issue teams, and people flow in and out of issue teams. And starting January, we'll be looking at legislation. People flow in and out of that depending on their interests. And so it's okay. It's okay to do that, but be upfront so that you can say, I can analyze this particular bill, and that's all I'm going to do. Okay, we'll take it. And so that's sort of important to be aware of. So we have some thoughts on overcoming these challenges. So we're going to kind of walk you through that. So this is for the chairs. We know you can do this. Anyone who's a chair, you can do that. Hey, you know what? You're not the only one who needs to recruit. Get your members to recruit with you, okay? Encourage your members to network and recommend potential participants. Use this as a pipeline to bring in new members. Sometimes having a committee meeting where you bring some people in to listen to a speaker or whatever is a great way to bring in new members, okay? It allows you to showcase your work and as a recruitment tool. Here's really something we're trying to get more and more of all our local leagues to do is connecting the younger people in your league. We call them youth, but that's anyone from 18 to 30. So, you decide whether that's youth or not. But, connect the new members to, the committee and give them some mentoring and engagement. Here's the thing, when you recruit, frame it as what's in it for me and what's in it for the league mission, both. That's your selling point. So we encourage you to do that. Hey, don't be reluctant to recruit. One thing that we learned in the last almost decade is if you don't ask, they don't know they're needed. Ask. People want to be asked. It's so surprising. We know in some leagues where they said, we asked and they said they'd do it. Well, that's the thing, right? But when you ask them, be transparent. Let them know, come up with some talking points and recruitment scripts. Make sure your talking point includes WIFM and WIFLM, is what we've come up with. What's in it for them and what's in it for the league, okay? Shared purpose, not personal favors. Normalize. Go beyond your friend network, okay? I know X, okay? I'm going to ask her to be on the committee, but X may not be the right person for that committee, okay? It's just that you guys go out together, you know each other, maybe somebody else. So, get used to asking people outside your network. So, ask boards to offer. That's one of the reasons we're doing this, because we actually got requests at convention. We need some help knowing how to be committee chairs. We need some help knowing how to run committees. And that's one of the reasons that we are doing this. We also want to strengthen, delegate. please delegate. Don't take it all on yourself. You're going to burn out faster than you realize. Keep an eye on mission creep. This is one of the main reasons there's burnout, because you're trying to do too much. It's not aligned to the mission. You can't solve all the issues, which is why we have priorities. We can't work. The impact on issues that the National League has come up with is close to 200 plus pages. There's no way we have the capacity to work on all those issues. So we prioritize what are the most pressing issues to work on. Technology support, we have it, folks. A couple of folks on this call are our experts and have done some amazing training. So reach out to the board, ask us, you need some training on X or Y, ask us. If you need a tech buddy, ask us, okay? Please ask. But most importantly, manage your time and capacity. Set your goals and time. Agendas are important. Task lists are important. Clear minutes that say, we agreed to this at the last board meeting, at the last committee meeting, at the next committee meeting. Go back and see, did you do it? Okay. And one thing is, you have to clarify, why are they there? Why is the committee there? Otherwise, people really flounder, okay? And absolutely follow through and highlight contributions. It's real important. Keep the board appraised. Let them know, hey, do you know what? Marcia just solved this for us, okay? So we encourage you to do that. Now, not only do chairs have some ideas, we have for members. So Marcia, you're going to talk to the members.
Again, you be approached, or when you reaching out to people, we really hope that people will say yes when asked. There's a certain amount of recognition when you're asked, and even if there is some hesitancy, stepping up is how that work done. And if you've not participated in a community, learning how that works and supporting that chair's work is really important. Participating in that networking can't be overstated, because you never really know who other people know and the strengths that they can bring into the work, and really being able to articulate not just that we want somebody to participate, but here's what it's going to do for that individual. This is what it's going to help build their skill set, develop their networks, and really to be able to build some leadership experience. What's in it for the league is being able to articulate how it aligns with the mission. This is how it's going to work, move the league work forward. Clarifying scope and role is really understanding at the outset what that committee's charge and goals are. And it is important as committee members to be able to ask those questions to make sure they understand that alignment. If it's not clear, what may be perfectly clear to the chair and to the board in terms of discussion about forming a group doesn't necessarily mean it resonates with the members, especially new members who may not have that depth of experience within the league. Asking questions, you can't add, there are no dumb questions, there are no bad questions. What is problematic if people don't understand and they don't reach out for clarity. Respecting the boundaries between committee work and advocacy roles is really important, because there is the advocacy role and the work in advocacy quite separate, unless it's an advocacy committee activity that's going on. So understanding that discrimination between like study policy study position, public position policy study groups, and the advocacy, understanding why there's a clear separation is important. Committing to tasks you accept, following through reliability, and recognizing if you're some challenges and reaching out to get resolution. I said I would do this. I don't have a clue where to start. Please help guide me. I'll do that work, but I need some guidance at the outset. Again, understanding that if you're working on a committee and you haven't stepped up to do certain tasks, it's going to continue to fall to the overburdened few or to the few who have stepped up. And what can you do to help smooth out that workload and make sure that there's adequate support for the work? The confidentiality of committee discussions and board deliberations, again, is really important. And it's something that can't be overstated when you're working on a committee. If you can't have candid, open, and really collegial discussions, people will be afraid to speak up. Making sure that the work of the committee and your expertise ties to the league values will keep things aligned going forward. If your expertise is very pertinent to the subject of that committee, bring it on, bring it to the table, and make sure that you're able to share that. Contributing diverse perspectives when you have statewide work going on will make, when you have that diversity of input, it will make the product of that committee ever so much more robust and resonate throughout the state. Building confidence with technology. Our goal is, again, to have, particularly for people new in their roles, to make sure that, if you don't know how to use a specific tool, that you're asking, and that then the board and our partners within, who are the experts in this, are able to say, I've got a training for you. I can help you, let me walk you through this. It will build your knowledge set. It will build your capacity to support additional work. And it's part of our role in building a resilient and robust organization. So part of that is not being scared of technology, and to be able to say, hey, I'm going to struggle with this, so bring it down to my level and make sure I understand it so that I can actually move forward successfully. And again, I'm one of the first ones who will say, I am not tech savvy. Somebody show me how to do this, and I'll be able to move forward. And that's okay. Not everybody's an expert in everything. Being respectful.
On that, Marcia, it would be good if, as a member, you step up to be a tech buddy. If you're already an expert, we're looking for tech buddies. So every committee, if you just tell the chair, I'm happy to be a tech buddy for this committee, I think it makes a big difference. The chair might actually need a tech buddy too. So, it's good to have that.
And again, be realistic about your time commitments. If you are struggling, make sure that the chair knows I've got a vacation coming up, or I'm having surgery and I'm going to be out of commission, but I will be back at X time. I will stay up to date on the material. And again, preparing for the meetings in advance keeps the work moving forward. You don't waste time. And staying attentive, so that means reading your email. I've been on committees where people say, yeah, I don't read my email, or, just text me. I couldn't find that document. It's happened to me where I can't find the document. And if I know I'm supposed to, I got to find somebody to point me at the right direction. And so staying up to date on the work of the committee, making sure that there's clear timelines and tracking, and what you're responsible to complete.
Mark Giles is on the call, and he and Keisha Moen did 2 excellent presentations on how to use Google Drive, and they've come up with some great documentation. So be sure to take advantage of those. We'll make it available. Keisha is working to make it available to everybody. So, there are resources and there is help. We're going to close it out with tools and resources. The AZ board expertise, ask us. We want our committees to be very successful. Ask your own local board. They want your committee to be successful. We have templates for agenda, minutes, task lists. We encourage you to try to get some free versions of Robert's rules. I think it's very helpful to understand what good parliamentary procedures are. And at the national level, at the state league, we're starting to upload a bunch of documents, but at the national level, there is some documents available for committees. Most of the content available is very subject matter related. So we have huge thunderstorms. I thought for a moment there was bombing or shelling going on, but it's thunderstorms here. So ask us templates for agenda, meeting minutes, sample committee project plans, and guidelines for consent agenda, Zoom. Ask us. We want to make sure you're very successful. So with that, we're going to make sure you remember all our social media. We're on Threads, we're on X, we're on Blue Sky, we're on YouTube, we're on Outreach Circle. If you liked what you heard and want us to reach out to you with further, if you want us to come to your local league and do a shortened version of this presentation, please reach out to me and we will make the arrangements to do so. If you like us, if you like, as they say on YouTube, thumbs up, like, share. We're happy to get any positive affirmation that this was worth the effort. Thank you.